Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Relationship Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Gloriann. Welcome to another relationship podcast. I hope that you enjoyed your long weekend and that you're ready for a new week. Today, I'll be talking about being home for the holidays. I know. What is she thinking? We're in April. And Christmas and Thanksgiving was like 4 or 5 months ago. But a lot of you were in spring break or at home for Easter or Passover. Whichever the holiday, it can be stressful being at home when you have a certain independence already. Even though you're not a college student anymore, or if you are a college student, being home for the holidays is still rough. And if family asks the most inappropriate questions or the worst questions at the wrong time, there's really no winning with the family when you're home. Either if you're the favorite or the black sheep, there's always that stress that comes over you when you are at home with your parents or with the rest of the family members. We all know that the holidays can be stressful and anxious. Being on time for the family dinner, wearing the right clothes for your mother or your father doesn't complain, cooking and helping around the kitchen, spending a lot of time with grandma, those type of things that you do when you're at home. When you're in your hometown, you want to see your friends and some family members. Sometimes your family traditions, the obligations, or the burden of the family don't let you see that your friends that much. Of course, we love our family, but let's all agree that sometimes it can be a little bit too much, and sometimes it just can be a lot. Either if it's your mother-in-law visiting or you visiting your family, your parents, your grandparents, it's always a stressful thing. You need to play a part and sometimes not be yourself. Let's say they say that the holidays are supposed to be fun, cheerful, and joyful, spending time with the family. It's the most important thing, which it is, but sometimes it's not like that. The holidays can trigger a lot of memories, sad ones and happy ones. It's natural to remember old times, especially when you're in a place that you made so many. No matter if it's good or bad, you still get reminded of those memories. Of course, any time of the year can bring memories, but let's say that you lost someone over the holidays. This time is going to be a constant reminder of what you lost, of the one that you lost. Yesterday, one of my coworkers, unfortunately, a family member passed away, and it was Easter time, and unfortunately for him, that's gonna be a constant reminder that in Easter, his family member passed away. Another thing you need to see is that toxic relative that you try to avoid the rest of the year, they're there. An example is the aunt that is always asking you, when are you going to get married or have kids? The one that never understands, and the one that has an opinion for everything. Of course, it doesn't have to be an aunt. It can be your grandparents. It could be your mom. It could be Eddie. It can even be a cousin. Because, you know, they see that you're not that... They sometimes don't understand you're trying to take your time, or they just see that everybody else around the family are doing this types of things, but you're not, so you're like the different one. Anyway, the people that you would like to avoid forever if you could, basically. The holidays can bring highlights of things that have changed this year, like a family member reuniting or a divorce, or focus on things that stay the same, like an uncle fighting and leaving, or an aunt getting drunk and making a fool of herself, or a cousin every time bringing a new girlfriend, or for every party they bring a new partner, whomever, whatever it is. Of course, those things are the highlights of your holiday, maybe. The holidays can be hard for people that don't have nobody to celebrate with, and it's a constant reminder that they're alone and they can be with their family. This can cause being depressed and making the holidays a little bit harder. Of course, if you have a mental illness, it's harder for you as well in the holidays because of all the stress and all the anxiety that your family takes in. Just like people that have depression, the holidays can trigger your depression even more, especially because of the things I said earlier. Either your grandma starts asking, where are you going to get married? Or, oh, why did you break up with this one? Or why are you getting divorced? And it's just this complicated questions that just get you, things that you don't even want to talk about, just, you know, they trigger you. And of course, family, they don't know boundaries, and they just need to know the answers now. Depression during the holidays can be tough because everybody's busy with their own thing, and you're either stressing out because you don't know what to buy for your family, or because you're tight on money. Sometimes the holidays can be a reminder of other emotions, like a family conflict that's been going on, or the first time that you broke up or divorced your partner. A lot of people get grumpy and they're never in a mood for the holidays. That's why you need to have compassion with them. Of course, when I'm saying like the constant reminders, other emotions, of course the holidays can trigger you as well to thinking of, oh, maybe you had a really bad childhood, and on Christmas time it was even worse because either a family member or your mom or your grandma or your whomever, they always got really drunk, or they just, you know, they did things that you really didn't have a good holiday. Anyway, back to the point. You don't know if they're going through something. If you know about someone that has depression, or even a family member that needs help, try to reach them and invite them to your house, or try to be there for them. I understand that sometimes family members, and including us as ourselves, we don't really want to see people sometimes in the holidays, so don't pressure them as well. And don't pressure them because, again, it's, you know, it's the holidays. It's supposed to be a happy moment. That's what society tells us to be. And the fact of you or the other person, how they feel during the holidays, it's not, you know, they're not happy. Their depression gets worse, or the anxiety gets worse because of X or Y. That's why you need to be more relaxed. That's why you just need to have compassion with them. And if you are going through depression, your family then needs to understand as well. I remember the first Christmas that my great-grandmother passed away. It was a difficult moment for my grandma and of course for the family. My great-grandmother was a really special lady. I was lucky enough to meet both of my great-grandmothers from my grandfather's side and my grandmother's side, from my mom's side. From my dad's side, I didn't really meet my great-grandparents. They died when my dad was really young. Anyway, she passed away in November, and on Thanksgiving, it was just weird because, of course, we were all mourning, my great-grandmother's death. And I remember that when we needed to say grace, it was my grandmother couldn't even talk. So it was a really difficult moment. And of course, on Christmas, when Christmas came by, we went all to my grandparents' house, and my grandmother didn't even get out of the room. We took her food to her room. She didn't eat. She was really depressed, and she didn't even want to open presents with me and my cousins. That's something that she loves to do, but she really wasn't in the mood. It was her locked in her room, crying and just being numbed. For New Year's, she was in a better mood, and she did spend time with us. But when it was time to say goodbye to the old year, 30 minutes later, she went to her room and, screamed out loud and started crying. And of course, we all got scared. And my grandfather, went and checked on her. And she really didn't even want to talk to him. She closed the door. She was just a mess. And it was because now when you ask her, she says to you, it's because, of course, because her mom loved the New Year's. And it was just a reminder that she wasn't there. And of course, when she was going to say oh, Happy New Year to her mom, she reminded herself that unfortunately she passed away. And I remember that when she was when she was in her room just crying, my great-grandmother, my grandfather's sister, went in and talked to her, and she lost her mom as well. So she knew what to say to her and how to make my grandma feel more comfortable and calmer. And of course, she got out of the room. She said sorry, but it's been a difficult time for her. Obviously, we all understood, but she said goodnight to everybody and that she wasn't really feeling celebrating anymore. So it was just, she just went to her room and went to sleep. Every year, the holidays remind her of her mother. And she gets a little bit sad, but she has controlled it a lot. She has been, she knows how to control it now. Of course, every time we go to her house, to my grandparents' house, it's mom would have loved this. Or if something happens, if something bad happened and nothing happened to us, she was mom was protecting you. My great-grandmother, she was as I said, she was a really great lady and really religious as well. So we do know that she's taking care of us. And every time my grandma talks about it, it's amazing, because it's a constant reminder of how my great-grandmother was with all of us. Anyways, as you know, what I'm trying to say is that the holidays, even though they are a time to be happy and grateful, they are not for a lot of people, especially people that struggle with mental illness. It may be depression, anxiety, and addiction. The holidays can break your routine and can be triggering for your mental health. The fact of being out of your routine can be troublesome because of course, having a routine, it makes you feel that you have control of something, and having a routine can affect and of course, once your mental illness gets triggered, you start to think about certain things that you're not ready to think about or even talk about or face. Because let's be honest, let's say if you went through a really bad divorce, and then it's the first holiday, the first Christmas that you're spending it alone, it could be triggering. It could be really anxious, and it could really take you to use other methods. This year, I can say that it's been hard for me due to the pandemic and the fact that I haven't seen my family for a year and 8 months. Of course, you need to try to take control at this time, because going through either a breakup, a divorce, not seeing your family for the first time, or not seeing your family in a long time, or the loss of a family member can really be difficult. That's why up next, I'll be talking about how to face the holidays and how to cope with certain situations.
The GSMC Sex Podcast is a show that examines all aspects of sexuality, from physical to emotional to spiritual. Join our hosts as they discuss age-old questions, common misconceptions, and the latest topics surrounding sex. They'll tackle topics about sexuality from the complicated to the hilarious and everything in between. GSMC Sex Podcast is your show for all of your questions about sex, even some you might not have thought of yet. Download the GSMC Sex Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you can find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back. As you know, I've been talking about how stressful the holidays can be and how being home or having family members in town can trigger a lot of emotions, and how your mental health struggles and can be worse in this time. When I was little, I always heard people say the holidays is a great time to be with family and it's so joyful and you have to be grateful. Getting older, I have noticed that the holidays can be really a problem. You're not always happy or joyful. Of course, I love the holidays, especially Christmas, but every time there's a holiday coming, there's family drama, or there's like more drama into my family. I live in Florida, and every time I go back home to visit, it's stressful. My routine changes and it affects me a lot, especially when in Puerto Rico. I have so many memories. You know, I have my family over there, my friends, and I lived there my whole life. Anyway, the point is that when I'm in Puerto Rico, my family is very strict. If you have Latin friends, you know that Latino families are really strict. And you have to do whatever you need to do in your house. It's like literally this is a typical Latin family saying that says, you're in my house, you go by my rules. And anyway... Of course, I'm just trying to do my own thing over there. And when I stay out at a family member's house or I stay with my mom, they put so many rules. Or even if I'm not in Puerto Rico, like if I visit one of my family members somewhere else, they have their own rules. And of course, one of my family members is like, oh, you can't be staying up all night partying, or no people at the house by 10 p.m. or no drinking in the house. You know, it's all of these different rules that I can understand because it's their house. But at the same time, it's like, okay, I live, you know, I'm mostly independent. I'm 27. Why do I have these rules that are like for a 15-year-old? Anyways, of course, I need to respect them, but being so independent here and then having such strict rules triggers me because I can't really do what I want. And let's say one of my friends invited me to something, but then tells me like, oh, hey, I'm going to get out of work at 10, be ready at 11. And then let's say if I'm staying that day, I'm staying with my grandparents, I tell them and they're like, nope, you're not going out. And it's like, okay, you're telling a 27-year-old to not go out. Okay. it's things that I need to respect because, again, they're my family. But of course, when I know that I'm going to go partying, I stayed at my mom's house. And of course, my mom, she just says like, oh, be home by 3 or be home. Don't be, up all night. And my mom is a little bit more flexible because she knows that I'm 27 and that I do my own thing now. And of course, when I'm in Puerto Rico, I go to Puerto Rico to see my friends. I go to Puerto Rico to spend time with my family. That's the most important, especially my grandparents. But they just remind me of how toxic they are sometimes, to the point that I get, I'm so excited to the point that I'm so excited to be there in Puerto Rico until I get reminded of how toxic sometimes they can be and how I can't really do my own thing, or because either they don't trust me or, things happen when, unfortunately, when my family members have this kind of rules is because something happened in the past. And again, I know that I have to respect it, but they need to. The way I see it as well is that they need to trust me. Of course. Anyway, to the point, coping with being home for the holidays. The fact is that the holidays doesn't mean that everything's going to be the color pink in your life. It's not like being a TV movie, that for Christmas time in TV movies, they're like, oh, there's a problem and they resolve it in 2 hours. It's like, yeah, no, buddy, that's not the fact in real life. There could be a family drama that has been there for 20 years, like your mom and your uncle hating each other, or your uncle hating somebody else in the family member. And those kind of problems don't fix themselves, but at the same time, they don't want to fix them. I don't know. A family can be weird, guys, and I know that we all know this. As I was saying, it's not gonna be the color pink. And au contraire, your problems are still here. You just need to control your emotions and try to get through the holidays. In the holidays, we have really high expectations of that everything's going to be different, and there's going to be like, you're going to have the perfect meal or the perfect lunch with your family members. Nobody's going to fight, nobody's going to be crying, or nobody's going to get drunk, which in reality, again, it happens because, again, I don't know why the holidays trigger people to do things like, they trigger their addiction. The holidays just trigger people to do things that you're like, come on, I just wanted one nice dinner. Of course, the exact same thing, those high expectations, you think like, oh, this time I'm going to have the car of my dreams, or this time my kids are going to behave themselves, or whatever reasons, those expectations, you need to lower them. And I know it sounds mean, but the fact of us overthinking the situation too much, we play all these different things in our head that you think that they're going to happen. And then when they don't happen the way you thought about it, it just puts you in a really bad mood. And we stress about how perfect a present is going to be. Okay, let's say like this. You bought the perfect present. You say, oh my God, this is the perfect present for mom, or this is the perfect present for grandma. She's going to love it. I'm going to be like her favorite kid or her favorite grandchild. And then when Christmas comes by and you give her the present, your mom doesn't really care about it. She's like, oh, okay, thank you. Or your grandma's like, oh, it's so pretty, thank you. And and you're like, oh, okay, I was expecting a better reaction, but okay. One thing that you need to do, even though we're in the holidays, and I know that we need to be happy, but But if you don't talk about your emotions, one thing that you need to do, and I know it's because it's the holiday, you don't want to do it, but one thing is talking about your emotions. If you feel that your mother-in-law came in the kitchen and said, oh, okay, this is what you're cooking, or she says, oh, your pie wasn't good enough this time, you just tell her, put her in her place respectfully, and tell her like, hey, I've been cooking. I woke up at 6 a.m. and then you're telling me that this wasn't good enough. That's hurting my feeling. It's like me going to your house and telling you that your waffles weren't delicious or some type of thing. Just the point is, talk your emotions. Just getting out of the topic. It's fine to feel different during this time, and you can't really put your emotions aside. If you're angry, sad, devastated, happy, excited, you need to talk about it. I understand that you don't want to be a burden, but you don't want to be a burden in the holidays, but it's necessary. You need to validate your emotions, and letting your emotions out can bring you to be calmer and maybe even nicer. And it's the best thing for your health. Of course, you're going to have family members that are going to be pissed off at you, but you know what? They can suck it up, because your emotions or your mental health goes first. If it's necessary to put yourself first, then you put yourself first. Taking time for yourself doesn't mean that you're being selfish. It means that you're just taking time for yourself. Our bodies can function, but not being stressed all the time. You get stressed, you're going to have either an anxiety attack or a panic attack, maybe both, and it's not going to be pretty. That's why you need to take time for yourself and even do a self-care routine. Go to the gym, take a bath, do your nails, whatever you need to do. Even though if you're not in your house, if you're like home for the holidays, try to take time for yourself or go out with friends. Even let's say you have a dinner with your family at 5 and it's 3 o'clock, just tell your friends, hey, let's meet up. That's for an hour because I have this. I just need to see you, or I just need to get out of this place so I can go through the family dinner. And of course, you need to practice saying no. I know that you want to help out your family, but sometimes they can take advantage of you, and you need to put limits. Just like if your aunt calls you and tells you like, hey, I have a dinner party, blah blah blah, there's gonna be this person, and then she mentions a person that you really can't stand, even though it's a family member or a family friend. Just tell her like, oh, auntie, I'm sorry, maybe for next time, because I already have plans. Of course, you need to be really careful how you say this to your family, because saying no to an aunt or to another family member, it can bring drama between other people as well. Like maybe you said no to your aunt and then your aunt calls your dad like, hey, she said no, blah blah, like what's happening, what other plans? And then your father calls you and says like, why did you say this? Like you're going. Like they try to force you to go and do things that you don't want to do. So that's why you have to put your boundaries and say, hey, I said no, it's no. Don't really waste your time fighting, but stand up for yourself. Of course, being home during the holidays, as I said, it can be triggering. That's why you need a support group. And if you think that you're not going to get through dealing with your parents, tell a friend to come over so they can support you the best way they can, or even a family member. They are always a good help, and they try to calm the situation. Sometimes, in my family at least, I can say one of my cousins is Switzerland. When there's a fight, he tries not to take any sides. He's just like, okay, guys, let's just look for a happy medium. It's, I know that in some families we don't have that, but try to at least tell a friend. And let's be honest. Of course, as I said many times, go take a walk, talk to your therapist or your mental health professional. This can help you a lot in trying to cope with the holiday stress, and they will know how to help you because, again, they have tools for that. Again, practice self-care. You can improve your mood and even try to make a routine for your holiday plans. Especially if you are going to see your parents. Let's be honest, family can be a lot. They sometimes don't know the damage that they have caused us because they're dealing with their own stuff. And maybe something happened in your childhood and your parents really didn't notice about it. And of course, it's no excuse, but as I said, we need to put our foot down. Being home can bring memories, and insult and criticism can be triggering for you. You can either get mad or sad. Of course, then you start to think that you're not good enough and your confidence starts to shut down. I understand that we want our family to love us, accept us the way that we are, and sometimes that doesn't happen because either your parents have high expectative for you, or your parents are narcissistic parents, or they have their issue. Whatever the reason, you need to understand that going home for the holidays can be triggering, and if your family is toxic and it affects your well-being, it's better not to go home for the holidays. I understand that seeing the family, it is important and you always want to see them. But again, if it's going to trigger your mental health, it's not worth it. We can pretend that everything is okay when it's really not okay. If you don't want to visit your family for the holidays because you don't want to deal with them and you don't want to go back to a bad path, there's nothing wrong in putting boundaries and telling your family that your mental health should be your first priority. And of course, skipping the holidays can be a little bit troublesome, but maybe you're not going to see your because maybe you're not going to see your favorite family member, or you're going to miss your mom's favorite dessert. But again, you need to prioritize yourself first. Of course, you're going to miss on the traditions and your family's going to miss you, but still you need that peace of mind and maybe even take control of the situation. Up next, I'll be talking about my experiences of being home for the holidays.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back. As you know, I've been talking about being home for the holidays, the importance of being there, and how it can be a challenge being back home for a little while, and the toll that can take on your mental health. In my experience, I remember that when I was little, the holidays were the best thing, either because in Thanksgiving, I saw all of my family together and having the best, food, or in Christmas, I saw my favorite cousin and spent time with my great-grandmothers. In Easter, doing a egg hunt in my great aunt's house and competing with my cousins who had the most eggs and who found money or chocolate. It was a joyful moment for me. I remember the first time that once my great aunt moved away, my grandparents tried to do the whole Easter egg hunt, and it really wasn't the same. Because I don't know if it was we were a little bit older or the fact that the whole family wasn't there, that it was just not the same. I even remember that was the last time I went, that we did an Easter egg hunt. I remember as well the first holiday that I spent with my mom because my dad and her were separated. And it was a weird moment because we had a lot of traditions of visiting the family during the holidays, and missing out on that was a changer. As I got older, the holidays weren't the same because I started to know the difference. I started to notice different things, either my parents arguing every time, or my aunt asking me when I was gonna have a boyfriend, or if I was dating somebody, or how was school going, or all the people being opinionated when my mom told them that I wasn't doing good in school, or when I was in my dad's side of the family, my grandmother giving more attention and humiliating me in front of my cousins. There was a lot of things that I remember that wasn't fun anymore. When my parents got divorced and I had to choose how to, where to spend the holidays, either with my mom's side of the family or my dad's side of the family, I always picked my mom, so my dad felt bad because, again, my dad's side of the family was always picking on me, and my grandmother, if I was with all my cousins and then we were playing around, blah, blah, and I didn't do anything, my cousins blamed me for it, and then my grandma took their side and she blamed me. Even though I didn't do anything, my dad was just like, Gloriann, why are you always causing trouble? So, of course, the fact of not having that support that my mom's side of the family did, I always picked my mom's side of the family. And, of course, my dad felt bad at the time, but it wasn't my intention to make him feel bad. And I guess that has brought my dad and I a little bit more separate, because I guess he has resentment towards the fact that I always picked my mom's side of the family and everything. Anyway, once I moved to Florida, I can say that everything changed and the holidays weren't the same at all. Everything changed completely. Who I spent time with, how I celebrated holidays, and it was a lot of changes, especially in 1 year. My first holiday here in Florida, it was Thanksgiving, and it was the first time that I didn't spend the holidays with my family. Well, I was, but it was a different family with my dad, my great aunt, my brother, and my dad's cousins, which it was nice. It wasn't really out of the normal. It was just different because Christmas in Puerto Rico, it's more about having good time with your friends and family, a lot of dancing, a lot of music, the food, especially the food, it's really good as well. That's something that I could say that in every Puerto Rican family, food, in all the parties, it's the food and the drinking. So my first holiday out, it was more into a different tradition, more about the spinach dip and eating turkey, and then the stuffing on the side, not inside, at least for Thanksgiving, and the cranberry and all of these different things that us in Puerto Rico we really don't do. And then for Christmas we have pork, in Spanish is lechon, and we have like a whole pork cooked. Meanwhile, we're with the family, and we spend time together, either talking or remembering certain things, dancing, singing, drinking as well. And here it's more relaxed. Even though my great aunt, she was raised in Puerto Rico, her and her family have a different traditions for Christmas and Thanksgiving and Easter. So it was just weird. And I remember that my first Christmas as well, my dad, he really didn't put any Christmas lights, not a Christmas tree. The presents weren't wrapped. It was a whole different thing that I was used to with my mom or my grandparents, because of course Christmas for my grandparents, it's their favorite holiday, and my grandma, she decorates the whole house with Christmas decorations, and we have to buy a Christmas tree, and then the whole house smells like pine. It's a really, that's what I was raised on, and that was my whole childhood. And of course, once I moved here with my brothers, it didn't really feel like Christmas. First, because we weren't with our family. Second, we were with our dad, but it was just not the same. And plus, my dad already had made a life here that it was more about his traditions, and it was just hard. Of course, you're not, I wasn't with my family, so the calls, the FaceTime, it's like, oh, we miss you, or hey, when are you coming, or hey, can we do this, can we do that? It was a really hard moment the first time that I didn't spend the holidays with my family in Puerto Rico and my friends as well. Everybody was calling me. Everybody was like, oh, for next time, please come. It's not the same, blah, blah. The second Christmas that I couldn't go to Puerto Rico because I was working and schoolwork, it was the exact same thing. My dad really didn't decorate anything. He was just, he told me like, yeah, we can buy a Christmas tree and we can do something different. And we did, we bought a little Christmas tree, and it was really little. It wasn't a big one. The house didn't smell like pine, but he was trying. Of course, we went to my aunt's house again, and this time, I guess she wanted us to feel more at home. So she made traditional, dinner, Puerto Rican dinner, and she tried to make more traditional, more things that will be for everybody. And we had a really good time. When I went for the holiday, when I went back to my hometown to visit, obviously it was completely different because I wasn't there for a long time. My friends and family, of course, they missed me a lot, but they were doing their own thing as well. And once I have this certain independence here, it was really hard for me to get used to the rules. And there was a lot of conflict with me and my mom because she didn't want to fight with me, but at the same time, she was telling me like, Gloriann, you're kind of being a little bit disrespectful. You're coming here at 5 a.m. in the house. Like, that's not something that you were used to, so it was this type of thing where her and we just didn't click. Of course, I had a really good time with her. We spent time because we haven't seen each other for a while. So we had a better connection as well, me and my mom. When I was younger, we did fight a lot, and I had a lot of anger towards her because of what happened with her and my dad, getting separated, then divorced, and all the things that happened between that time, between her and my dad, that whatever. The point is that, of course, it was just a different type of thing because even though I'm sort of independent, at the same time, my family members still have these rules, as I said earlier, like no drinking in the house, no people after 10 p.m., no, it was all the things that I got used to another thing here in Florida. So it was more about spending time with them. They basically were trying to obligate me to spend more time with them and not hang out with my friends. And I remember that from my dad's side of the family, because my dad, once I went to visit Puerto Rico, my dad talked to me and said like, hey, visit your family members, but I know you want to, see your friends and everything, but visit your family members from my side as well, because they do miss you. And it's the holidays. You should spend a little bit more time with everybody. I did. I saw my grandmother. She was completely different. She was nicer, and she was more like proud of me, of the fact that I've been doing my own thing. And my cousins as well. I guess the fact that they have kids now, it's more into the situation of, it's more, the situation's more calm. And I remember that my younger cousin, we're 2 years apart. He told my grandma one time, she called my attention, and he literally stood up for me. He was like, Grandma, it wasn't her. Why are you yelling at her? like it wasn't them, it was the kids. And it was funny because I guess my cousins are now my cousins started to see of how my grandma treated me and how they took advantage of that situation as well. And this is that being home for the holidays, I did spend a lot of time with my friends, and my friends were just, of course, every time that I'm in Puerto Rico visiting, I always have time for my friends, especially because of putting boundaries with my family. Like ever since the first time that I went back to visit, of course, since it was a lot of conflicts, I put a lot of boundaries with my mom and my grandparents as well. So I'm like, okay, so I'm independent. You guys need, I told them like, okay, I'm, a little bit more independent now. I think that you can trust me. I haven't done anything to break your trust. I understand completely that there's a lot of things that have happened with other family members, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to do the same. And of course, my mom has been more understanding. My grandparents, they always protect me a lot. They're really overprotective, especially my grandfather. And he's always like, yeah, no, if you're staying in my house, you have to go by my rules. Or I remember that one time I traveled with them for my birthday. We were gonna see my cousin as well, that it was his birthday. And I remember that it was all these kinds of rules, and I was just impatient because, again, once you are out of your family's house, or you don't see them as much, and they start to control your life in a certain way, you get pissed off because you have been showing them that you are doing great by yourself and that you really don't need their help. Basically, of course, we all do need our family's help at one point, but with my family, I can say that it can go to a little bit of the extremes, maybe because I want to do what I want, and then of course they want me to do what they want. So it's more of a like who's the boss. It's more like a who's the boss situation. And again, I love my grandparents, I love my family, but they can be a little bit too toxic sometimes. And of course, this Christmas, I could not be there with them and spend time with them, just like spending time with my friends. Well, due to the global pandemic and all of the things that we have missed due to it. Of course, soon I will see them, and I know that I will need like a month being in Puerto Rico, or even a little bit more, because I do miss my whole family and my friends, especially my friends, because they understand me in a lot of the things, and they are always there, and they're always been there for the hard times, and they're my support. They're my support. And for now, that's the stories that I really have of being in the holidays. For now, that's the story that I have. Up next, I'll be talking about moving out and how it can affect your relationship with your parents.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back. And finally, to end today's podcast, I'll be talking about how moving out can improve your relationship with your parents. When you're a teenager, you can't wait to move on your own and try new things and have your own apartment and do whatever you want. Either you have a roommate or you live alone. We can all relate that we want to have that certain freedom and not get explanations to no one or getting in trouble because you got out at 11 p.m. or arrived past curfew. For a lot of you, once you graduate high school, you went to college, either out of state or a couple of hours away from your home. Of course, when you have a certain type of freedom and you start to do your own thing and become independent, you start to change your own perspective in life and even understand a little bit your parents. The fact of not having your parents around makes you miss them, and when you have a situation, you ask yourself, what will mom or your dad do? The fact of being away from them makes you think about them even more, and you miss the guidance and advice that they give you. You thought that being away from your parents was going to be a good thing and it was all going to be, the color pink, but in reality, you're going to miss them and you're going to start to see the little things that they did for you and you didn't appreciate it at the time. The relationship starts to change once you're away because they see you as an adult that can make its own decisions. Moving out means paying your bills, working, cooking food, scheduling appointments. And let's face it, we all hate it and we get scared at first of making your own appointment because you're like, oh my God, how do I do this? Once your parents start to see you as an adult, it can be freeing because they start to respect you and have more trust in you and in your decision making. That even the tension that you guys had in the past starts to be better and you guys don't fight a lot. Of course, when you live with your parents, you fight for little things because they get annoyed by something that you did, like putting the clothes in the floor instead of the hamper, or letting the toothpaste all over the countertop. It's all about, they just get annoyed by those little things that you do, or you get annoyed by the little things that they do. Like every time your mom starts to clean at 7 a.m. a Saturday morning, you're like, Mom, okay, why? Of course, if you have a partner or a roommate, it can happen at any time and at any moment. You just get annoyed by those little things because let's face it, we're all different. Anyways, once you're away from your parents, you start to nourish your time with them, and being apart makes you appreciate them even more because you start to understand all the sacrifices they did for you when you were growing up. Either it was a little thing like buying you the puppy that you wanted, or getting you the PlayStation or the Game Boy that you wanted. Those little things makes you appreciate them more. Because of that, you start to treat them better. And when it comes to arguments, you either take the high road or try to discuss with them and resolve the problem. Our parents try to do what they think is best for us. Of course, when you live with them, you don't really appreciate the little things they do for you. Like I said, like making you breakfast or buying you your favorite ice cream, or when they make your doctor's appointment, or order your pizza. Because of course, again, I remember the first time that I needed to order pizza by myself. It was scary. I know it's pizza, but at the same time, it was just traumatizing for me. I just don't like talking on the phone and making appointments or, making decisions over the phone. I understand that not a lot of parents do this for their kids, and there can be a lot of trauma and a lot of drama as well between you and your parents. And of course, you're not gonna have the exact same relationship that your best friend or one of your friends have with their parents, because again, every parent is different, and the way that they raise us, it's the way that they think it's better for them. Some people can bring support to their kids and others really don't. Of course, your parents want what's best for you, and they have really high expectations about how you're going to turn out in life. Many parents wanna think that, oh my God, my son's gonna be a doctor, or my daughter's gonna be an engineer, or, a scientist. Those little type of things, they just have high expectations about you and in the decisions that you make in your life. They believe that if they didn't do a good job raising you, then they're just scared that you're just gonna make really bad decisions in your life. But of course, we have seen in other types that you can be the best parent ever, or your parents can be the best parent, but then you turn out to be not as good as them, or you see that your friends, their parents were the best parents ever, and you see that your friend is either, doing illegal things or whatever the reason. As recent young adults that move out, you will appreciate more the time that you spend with your parents or your mom or your dad or whomever took care of you. Either is when you return for the holidays, or you see them once a week or in the weekends. You start to appreciate that time, and you're going to be more grateful for them even more. Again, not a lot of you are going to feel the same because of past traumas, or even because your parents weren't really there, or they were just in their own little world. When I lived in Puerto Rico, I used to fight a lot with my mom. It was like a sister relationship than a mother-daughter relationship, because she was always fighting with me if I grabbed her stuff without permission, or she got mad that I used her hair products when I was using her bathroom. In conclusion, we had a lot of discussions, and again, it was more like a sister relationship than a mother and daughter relationship. I can say that I really didn't have a bad childhood. My parents, when they were together, they try to give me the best education, and they teach me how to be the best person that I could be and be nice to people. But when I was older, I started to notice things from my parents that I didn't really like. And once they got divorced, I was living with my mom, and again, a lot of discussions because I was just mad at her and my dad. And of course, she was doing things that I wasn't happy with, or I just thought that she wasn't really doing the best thing that she could. And it was me having an expectation of my mom, because again, as a kid, I saw that they gave me everything. And at the time, I just didn't understand that both of my parents, and I was an only child as well at the time. So things were better at that time. And growing up, now that I'm older, my late 20s, I see I see that and I understand that. Even though I don't have kids, I know that she was trying to make her best, and just like my dad. When I went to college, I stayed home, and my mom made everything possible to pay whatever thing I needed to pay, because my dad, I didn't really ask him for help. And of course, I had the FAFSA money, just like I had my own scholarship, but at the same time, I still had to pay a little bit more. So my mom did all the things possible for her to, for me to stay in college. When I wanted to change colleges, she supported me. Of course, it was a cheaper college, and she didn't need to pay anything. She was more happy when I changed universities, because again, she didn't need to make that sacrifice. Anyway, once I moved out of the house, once I moved out to Florida to live with my dad and go to college here, I started to see all those sacrifices that her being a single mom with 3 kids did. I noticed that my dad, obviously, once I got here, he was like, yeah, no, you're gonna look for a job, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that, you need to be independent, basically. And of course, my dad does help me in the necessary things, but at the same time, he wants me to be a successful adult. But, it's taking a little bit of time, okay? Patience, people, patience. Once I started to pay for my own car and find the money to pay for my school and be independent, I started to appreciate all that my mom did for me and my brothers. Of course, again, at the time I didn't see it, but now that I'm older, I do. Ever since I moved here, I try to call her every day, but my mom never has her phone close to her. It's always a fight, and she doesn't really answer me. But we do get along so much better, because the tension that we have has been going down. She's the one that even misses me more. The other day, she said to me, I miss when you sat in my bed and started to sing to me or annoy me or start yelling through your room, calling mom and just doing you favors. She even tells me things that I don't even remember doing, but I guess I was little at the time. So when I go to Puerto Rico to visit my family and I see my mom, it's more about spending time together, because we do get along so much better, and she is proud of me and the way that I have turned out. She does get mad at me when I stay out late with my friends, but she understands that I don't see them that often. And I've noticed that my mom, she respects me and she respects the decisions that I make, because for now, I haven't done anything to disappoint her. Well, in some things I do disappoint her, and I know that there's things that she wouldn't tell me. But anyways, the point is that she sees me as an adult and respects me. Of course, we all want to get out of our parents' houses because we believe that we're ready to be independent. But in reality, it sucks. And once you're alone and your parents are not there to help you, you start, and you have to start paying bills and start learning how to do all of these new things that you were like, okay, mom and dad did this for me. How do I do this now? Anyways, you start to appreciate and notice the things that they did for you, and you start to be grateful for all the moments that you have with them, or with you have and had with them. Of course, now I live with my dad. I'm not really that independent because he pays for the roof and my food, but I've been learning how to do stuff alone. And of course, I'm pretty sure that once I move out, he's going to miss me more than what I'm going to miss him, because we are basically the same, and it's like cats and dogs fighting all the time. And we really, every time that he says something and I know that it's wrong, or that's not something that is true or belief, I'm like, Dad, no, you're wrong. And we start to have this discussion back and forth of who has the reason, or who really is right and who's wrong. But I know that he loves me, and I know that he tries to do his best, just like my mom. But the thing is, he just tries to do his best in a really weird way. And I think that's another thing on why we don't get along, because I was raised basically more by my grandparents, and they do things so different than my parents. So it's more of a, wait, grandpa doesn't do this. Wait, grandma doesn't do this. Why are you doing this? So it's, that's another thing on why we have a lot of discussions, or like why I have a lot of discussion with my parents. Although I get along better with my mom, as I said, my grandparents are the ones that I find that they really did more for me than my own parents. And everything I do with them, I appreciate every little thing. I appreciate everything they did, they do, and they will do in the future. Anyway, the point is that once you start to notice the struggles of living alone and the fact of moving out, that the little things that your parent did for you, your relationships start to be better because you understand them even more. Thank you for listening, and I hope that you enjoyed today's podcast, that you're staying safe, guys. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Relationship Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask you to please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.